Hello, folks! Today, we're diving into a topic that's about as fun as a root canal: the global surge of sovereignism and nationalism. It's a phenomenon that's been sweeping across continents, affecting countries big and small, rich and poor. Now I know what you're thinking. On This Day Chronicles, you promised us stories about the most bizarre historical coincidences. And yes, I did promise that, and I always keep my promises. But before we dive into those mind-blowing moments, we need to discuss something a bit more serious, and don't worry, we'll get to those. But first, let's take a closer look at this worrying trend that's been making headlines and stirring debates around dinner tables and in parliaments alike. But first, we need to talk about this worrying trend. Nationalism isn't just a buzzword, it's a movement that's reshaping the political landscape in profound ways. From the United States to Romania, from India to the Philippines, we're seeing a rise in leaders who champion us versus them rhetoric. These leaders are gaining popularity by promising to put their country first, often at the expense of international cooperation and global unity. They promise to put their country first, often at the expense of international cooperation. This rhetoric is not just about patriotism, it's about creating divisions and fostering a sense of otherness. It's about drawing lines in the sand and saying, we're different, and that's why we're better. But is this really the best way forward? Spoiler alert, it's complicated. Take Hungary, for example, where policies emphasizing national sovereignty have drawn criticism for limiting freedoms and straining relations with the European Union. Or Russia, where nationalist rhetoric fuels foreign policy decisions, but at the cost of international isolation. On the flip side, countries like Norway or Japan strike a delicate balance, protecting their cultural identities while engaging in global trade and diplomacy. It's a tug-of-war between preserving sovereignty and embracing cooperation, and it's proving difficult to maintain. This isn't just some abstract political theory, it's impacting real people's lives. Families are being separated by stricter immigration policies, businesses are suffering from trade wars, and communities are feeling the strain of increased polarization. Think about trade wars, restrictions on immigration, and the erosion of global institutions. These are not just headlines, they are realities that affect our daily lives. The products we buy, the people we meet, and the opportunities we have are all influenced by these global shifts. Yeah, it's enough to make you want to crawl under your duvet with a year's supply of biscuits. But hiding away isn't going to solve anything. We need to understand what's happening and why, so we can find ways to address these challenges head-on. But fear not, dear viewers, because today, we're going to break it down. We're going to explore the roots of this nationalist surge, examine its consequences. We'll look at the historical context, the economic factors, and the social dynamics that are driving this movement. We'll look at what's fueling this rise of nationalism, how it's impacting our economies, and what it means for the future of our increasingly interconnected world. We'll consider different perspectives to get a comprehensive understanding of this complex issue. Buckle up, buttercups, it's going to be a bumpy ride. But it's a ride worth taking, because understanding these trends is crucial for navigating the future. So grab your popcorn, settle in, and let's get started on this journey together. Alright, let's start with the basics. What exactly is sovereignism? It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but what does it really mean? In a nutshell, it's the idea that a country should be able to act independently, free from external influence or control. Sounds simple enough, right? But there's more to it than just waving a flag and declaring independence. Who doesn't love a bit of independence? It's a powerful feeling, a sense of pride and self-determination. But independence also comes with responsibilities and challenges. Here's the catch. Sovereignists often prioritize national interests above all else, even if it means ignoring international agreements or throwing a wrench in the gears of global cooperation. This can lead to a lot of friction on the world stage. Imagine a world where every country is just out for themselves. No cooperation, no alliances, just a constant struggle for dominance and resources. It sounds like a recipe for disaster, doesn't it? It's basically a giant game of Monopoly, but instead of colorful money, we're playing with the fate of humanity. Every move, every decision has far-reaching consequences. Think of it like this. Your neighbor decides to build a giant flaming catapult in their backyard. It might seem like a fun project to them, but it has the potential to cause a lot of trouble. Sure, it's their property and they can technically do what they want, but their actions don't exist in a vacuum. they have real-world implications for everyone around them. But what happens when that flaming catapult accidentally launches a burning piano into your living room? Suddenly, their right to do as they please starts to infringe on your right to safety and peace. Suddenly, your neighbor's sovereign right to build whatever they want starts to feel a little less appealing, doesn't it? This is the dilemma of sovereignism in a nutshell. Sovereignism, in its extreme form, can be a bit like that flaming catapult. It might seem appealing at first, a way to assert independence and control, but it can quickly lead to chaos and conflict. It might seem appealing at first, but it can quickly lead to chaos and conflict. When countries act solely in their own interest, it often leads to misunderstandings, disputes, and even wars. And trust me, the world has enough problems without countries lighting metaphorical pianos on fire. We need cooperation, understanding, and mutual respect to tackle the global challenges we face today. Sovereignism might offer a sense of control, but it often comes at a high cost. Now, let's talk about everyone's favorite topic, the economy. It's a subject that affects us all, whether we realize it or not. From the price of groceries to the availability of jobs, economic policies shape our daily lives in countless ways. Specifically, how sovereignist policies, which often involve increased government control, can impact a country's economic well-being. These policies can range from trade restrictions to subsidies for local businesses, and they often spark heated debates among economists and policymakers. Now, I'm no economics professor, but even I can tell you it's a mixed bag. There are pros and cons to consider, and the effects can vary widely depending on the context. It's like trying to balance a scale with ever-changing weights. On the one hand, some argue that greater government intervention can protect domestic industries, create jobs, and reduce reliance on foreign powers. This can be particularly beneficial in times of economic uncertainty or global instability. Think of it like building a fence around your garden to keep out pesky squirrels. By doing so, you can ensure that your plants grow strong and healthy without outside interference. Sure, it might block out some sunshine, but hey, at least you get to keep your precious tomatoes. This analogy highlights the trade-offs involved in such policies. While protectionism can safeguard certain sectors, it may also limit the overall growth potential. On the other hand, excessive government control can stifle innovation, limit individual freedoms, and lead to inefficiencies. When the government has too much say in economic matters, it can create a rigid environment where creativity and entrepreneurship are stifled. Imagine trying to order a pizza in a country where the government controls all the cheese. The process becomes cumbersome, and the quality of the product may suffer as a result. You might get your pizza eventually, but it'll probably be cold, and the toppings will be interesting. This scenario illustrates how government intervention can sometimes lead to unintended consequences that affect everyday life. The truth is, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. The effectiveness of government control varies from one situation to another, and what works in one country might not work in another. Let's step into the world of the United States. With less than 2% of its economy controlled by the government, the US stands as a beacon of capitalism. Its $26.9 trillion GDP is fueled by thriving private industries like technology, finance, and entertainment. Think about companies like Apple, Tesla, and Netflix, global brands born from competition and innovation. But it's not just about wealth. The US is rated free by global freedom indexes, reflecting the personal liberties and economic opportunities that come with an open market. It's a land where ideas compete and the best rise to the top, driving progress not just domestically, but worldwide. Now consider New Zealand. With government control under 10%, this small nation punches above its weight. Its $250 billion GDP is powered by agriculture, tourism, and services. Known for transparency and fairness, New Zealand ranks among the least corrupt and most free countries in the world. It's proof that even smaller economies can thrive when powered by market-driven growth and openness to trade. Now turn to Russia, where over 50 to 60% of the economy is under government control. With a $2.1 trillion GDP, Russia is a major player in energy exports thanks to state giants like Gazprom and Rosneft. But the state's grip on the economy comes with a cost. The country is ranked not free by freedom indexes, with restricted press, limited civil liberties, and rampant corruption, scoring just 28/100ths on Transparency International's corruption index. This heavy-handed approach limits innovation, isolates the nation from global markets, and stifles the entrepreneurial spirit. Russia's economy, despite its size, struggles to diversify beyond oil and gas, a stark contrast to the dynamic, diversified economies of the capitalist path. Similarly, China, with its 40 to 50% state-controlled economy, boasts a massive $19.4 trillion GDP. While its growth is impressive, much of it is driven by state planning and exports, leaving domestic consumption and personal freedoms trailing. China ranks low on personal freedoms, and its model of centralized control creates a fragile balance between growth and repression. Now let's talk about everyone's favorite pastime, lying on the internet. Just kidding. Sort of. We're actually talking about the spread of misinformation and how it's being used to fuel nationalist agendas around the world. Remember that Firehose of Falsehood strategy we mentioned earlier? It's basically the digital equivalent of shouting conspiracy theories through a megaphone while wearing a tinfoil hat. The idea is to overwhelm people with so much misinformation that they don't know what to believe anymore. And sadly, it's surprisingly effective. Take for example the 2016 US presidential election. Remember those totally real Facebook ads created by Russian trolls? Yeah, those were designed to sow discord and manipulate public opinion. And it wasn't just happening in the US, similar tactics have been used in elections and referendums around the world, like this month in Romania presidential elections, Brexit referendum, 2016 UK, France, 2017 presidential election, Poland and Hungary, EU misinformation campaigns, or Brazil, 2018 presidential election, and so on. The internet, for all its cat videos and online shopping, has become a breeding ground for misinformation. And when people are constantly bombarded with false narratives and inflammatory rhetoric, it's no wonder they become more susceptible to nationalist appeals. It's like trying to have a rational conversation in a room full of pigeons wearing tiny propaganda-filled hats. Globalization and capitalism aren't perfect, but they've proven time and again to be the engines of progress. Open markets encourage competition, reward innovation, and expand personal freedoms. They allow nations to connect, trade, and grow together, fostering prosperity on a scale that state-controlled economies struggle to achieve. The world's most dynamic economies remind us that when governments step back, people step forward. And in that forward motion lies the true power of globalization and free enterprise. In the end, the best defense against disinformation is curiosity and critical thinking. We need to read, and read again, exploring multiple sources and perspectives. Don't believe something just because it comes from a slick video or a friendly face. Don't even take my word for it. This video is just a starting point. Always dig deeper, question everything, and do your own research. Remember, the beauty of science is in its constant self-questioning. It's always looking to prove itself wrong to get closer to the truth. That's the mindset we need, not to settle for easy answers, but to keep searching, keep questioning, and keep learning.